Hi, I'm actor Ian Champion, and welcome to History of Horror Cinema, my personal podcast tour of the good, bad, and the ugly of horror movie history. If you like what you hear, please don't forget to hit subscribe. Behind the Mask, 1932. An old Buddhist quote about retaining humility could well have applied to Boris Karloff in the weeks following his career-defining role in 1931's Frankenstein. Before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. He'd certainly done his fair share of labouring at the coalface of contract obscurity, and for the 7 weeks after finishing on the role at Universal, he kept ticking over with projects at United Artists and Columbia. For the latter, he played 2 gangster parts, in The Guilty Generation and Behind the Mask, which we'll focus on here. Directed by John Francis Dillon, the most remarkable future contributor to this picture, other than Karloff, is its writer Joe Swerling, a former journalist and illustrious screenwriter who wasn't above slumming it to keep the fires burning. Swerling wrote additional scenes for that perennial Christmas classic It's a Wonderful Life, as well as 5 other films for Frank Capra, was Oscar-nominated for Pride of the Yankees, and co-wrote the book for the immortal stage show Guys and Dolls. If those credits aren't impressive enough, he was one of many, uncredited for their work on Gone with the Wind, and scripted the first Marx Brothers short film Humor Risk in 1921, though according to IMDb, Groucho may have hated the film so much he burned the negative. Behind the Mask, then, was as much a simple paycheck for Swerling as it was for Karloff. Fellow fans of Karloff's later work will enjoy his change of pace from so many urbane evil doctors into a seedy blue-collar criminal, Henderson, straight out of a Warner Brothers gangster picture. In prison, he tries to persuade fellow con Quinn, Jack Holt, not to make a private breakout, as he knows he'll soon be sprung himself by a shadowy kingpin so powerful that the mention of his name causes the speaker to stare glassy-eyed into the distance. Extra fun can be had listening to Karloff grumble his hard-boiled lines, written in American idioms and rhythm, whilst still retaining his British accent. You know, if you line up with us, there's going to be a lot of dough in it for you. What Henderson doesn't know is that Quinn is Jack Hart, an FBI agent on an elaborate undercover mission. As a veteran of 30s crime dramas, Holt rattles through his dialogue with a nimble, clipped gravity, just as well as he has some exposition dumps to deliver en route. The aforementioned crime boss has a whole network in his thrall, including their nervy mutual acquaintance Arnold, Claude King. His paranoia is doubly understandable as his battle-axe housekeeper, Nurse Edwards, Bertha Mann, is constantly feeding his movements to the feds. Quinn makes his way to Arnold's house with a self-inflicted bullet in the arm. But before he can press Arnold for incriminating information, he meets the man's daughter, Julie. In this thankless part, Constance Cummings calls to mind the Sex Pistols, as she manages to be both pretty and vacant, delivering her lines in one of 2 gears, either deadpan or overwrought ham. When the bullet-pranged Hart unexpectedly visits her on the run, he suddenly grimaces and grips his arm from the gunshot wound. The actress stares at him for a full 5 seconds before exclaiming, "Oh, you're hurt." She at least is more effective at treating his wound. This was Cummings' 3rd shared movie with Karloff after Howard Hawks' The Criminal Code and The Guilty Generation, in a 50-year career that encompassed celebrated theatre work, including the National Theatre's run of Long Day's Journey into Night opposite Sir Laurence Olivier. Maybe her distracted performance here was a bad week at the office. A more pressing mystery is who is the clandestine puppet master Mr. X we keep hearing about. Since it would be a few years before Karloff provided a gallery of sinister MDs for Columbia, medical mayhem here is practiced by Edward Van Sloan, a fellow alumnus of Karloff's from Frankenstein. He is Dr. August Steiner, with a severity of tone matched by his beard, whose bottom seems to have been trimmed to an eerily clinical flatness by a buzzsaw. His controlled menace as the Mad Doctor is what strays Behind the Mask entertainingly across the lane into horror. In earlier scenes, his accent, glasses and beard are less medical megalomania and somehow more reminiscent of a devious rabbi, a distracting appearance that is explained later. His bedside manner is razor-sharp too. When henchman Henderson comes calling, not knowing that the doctor and his employer are one and the same, Steiner warns him that seeking retribution for his prison frame-up would not be so good for your health. Steiner later gives a consultation to faux patient Agent Burke, Thomas E. Jackson, who presents fake symptoms in a bid to snoop for less personal evidence. Steiner seems to be taken in, but quickly inspects him under an X-ray screen with impressive smoothness, revealing the G-Man's concealed agency badge. I must admit, I didn't identify that particular detail till later exposition. I thought he'd swallowed a lady's purse. After some Republic serial-style crime-action fluff involving Steiner's drug trafficking hidden inside medical cadavers, in the climax he goes full-on crazed medico mode when he gets our hero on an operating table in his private hospital. He observes, after applying a stethoscope, "Your heart shows a distinct flutter." No wonder. Obscured by surgical cap and mask, we can only see Steiner's eyes, shielded by inscrutable glasses, as he prepares his scalpel to turn Hart into another drug mule. Van Sloan milks the malevolent nuance in his lines by channeling his Dutch-German heritage into rolled R's. Wasn't it Nietzsche who said that unendurable pain merges into ecstasy? Fortunately, kinky questions like this are curtailed when Steiner is shot by Arnold's daughter. A post-mortem close-up dissolve shot of his clean-shaven face adds the beard and glasses disguise that took our attention earlier. As a functional supporting player, Henderson had already been dispatched off-screen into the interrogating hands of the Bureau. The actor, however, was about to be treated a whole lot better. After the release of Frankenstein in November 1931, Boris Karloff's stock rose dramatically. Universal offered him a 2-year contract to capitalize on his newfound fame. Stephen Jacobs' tremendous biography of him, More Than a Monster, quotes Karloff's grateful response, "Maybe for once I'll know where my breakfast is coming from after more than 20 years of acting." This was a characteristic understatement. He was now launched on a star trajectory that would keep him in the public eye as a horror star for the next 4 decades. Thanks for listening. If you like what you hear, please don't forget to hit subscribe.